Welcome back, folks. Now, we have got Rupert Brun here, who's head of BBC Technology for Audio and Music. Rupert, you're doing a session today, at midday, is it? Midday? Around about midday? Tell us about that session. Well, first of all, what do you do, and then what you're doing a session on?
I'm head of technology for BBC Radio, so I'm responsible for the technology strategy and the delivery of all the technology projects. And that covers everything from the microphone in the muddy field at Glastonbury, the outside broadcast trucks, studios, and all the broadcast infrastructure to the point where the signals leave the building on the way to the audience. And today I'm going to talk about the future of audio, with a particular reference to radio, but I think applicable broadly. I'm going to touch on ways that radio can move beyond stereo to offer a more immersive experience, not just for people at home with home cinema systems, but what we can do for those with headphones. I'm going to demystify the world of audio objects a bit, very much a beginner's guide to that, because audio objects are a complex subject and would take 40 minutes in their own right, but just lift the lid on that a bit and explain that it's not really that scary. I'm going to talk about some of the innovations we've delivered recently in BBC Radio, audience-facing innovation. And I'm going to finish up with a couple of things which broadcasters can do, I think, quite quickly and easily to help them remain relevant to a young audience.
So what do you think are to me, who's been, in broadcasting for 20 odd years, radio has always been just there. What kind of developments are happening in radio behind the scenes that we might be looking forward to in the future?
I think radio has a challenge with the young audiences. It's still very strong at the moment, but the amount of time people are listening is going down because there's so many other things that people can do these days. And I think radio needs to learn to diversify and how to get to the places where young people are. So young people don't necessarily come to the radio these days in order to find music to listen to. They use streaming services for that sort of thing. So how does radio link up with that? The BBC have recently done some work, for example, with Playlister, where if you're listening to a piece of music on the BBC, you can click a button and add that to your Spotify or Deezer playlists. So we're linking the worlds that young people live in. And we have to accept that they don't have radios these days. Although they listen to radio content, they're doing it on a device that has a screen, and we have to learn how to make the most of that.
And so this we're not talking about technology that involves just necessarily sound acquisition. This is about integrating platforms and social media and methods of taking content from here and playing it here and just changing the model of distribution.
It's talking about changing the model of distribution. Broadcast is going to be with us for a very, very long time, despite the success of the internet. All online listening to BBC Radio's content only accounts for about 6% of listening. So broadcasting is an effective way of reaching a mass audience in a way that the broadcaster and the consumer can afford. It doesn't use up your data. But a hybrid model where we broadcast the audio and we use your internet connection, whether it's broadband at home or cellular phone, to provide additional content and interactive options, I think is going to be the future for a long time to come, that hybrid world of mixing the best of broadcast and IP technology.
Now, you mentioned something called audio objects, which you said is quite a complex subject. It may take 40 minutes to discuss, but I'm not familiar with that term. Can you give me a kind of simplified version of what we're talking about here?
Yes, we've always produced audio with the way it's going to be replayed in mind. So we make it for mono, or for stereo, or for 5.1 surround sound. The number of formats increasing enormously. We've now got 7.1, 22.2. It's getting very hard for content creators to produce versions for all those different formats and distribute them. With audio objects, instead of creating content for stereo or 5.1, you record each sound-making source along with metadata that describes how big it is, how high from the ground, which direction it's pointing in. So I'm an audio object that has a sound-making device this big, it's this high off the ground, it's pointing that way. We also model how diffuse it is. So a clap is a very precise sound, wind is very diffuse. And we record all of that and then subsequently decide how to render that for replay. So you might render it for stereo or render it for 5.1, and the rendering can be done either by the person who's created the content and at the point where they're distributing it, or it could be done in the consumer's device. So if you are listening to a piece of content on your mobile phone on the bus, the phone knows you're on a bus, it knows the background noise level's quite high, so it might render that content to give you clear, loud central speech and not too much effects or background music. You get home, you plug your phone into the docking station connected up to your 9.1 surround sound, and the same content stream is then rendered into a very dynamic 9.1 surround sound mix. And the broadcaster has only provided one version of the content for that to happen.
Well, it sounds fascinating. I mean, it sounds like there's a great deal of exciting technology ahead to help us still enjoy radio for many, many years to come.
I think so. There was a view a few years ago that audio was kind of done. I think we're now reaching a new age of audio innovation where people have realised that actually there is still a lot to do and we can make it far better than we can even dream at the moment.
Well, so Rupert, for anyone who's at the show today, where can they find you and come and see your seminar?
They can hear me in the Broadcast Technology and Workflow Theatre, which is in the corner of the hall at 12 o'clock.
Rupert, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Right, we'll be back shortly, so don't go away.